Imagine a child born in a small village. Let's call him X. X lives in a fairly large house, but it has no windows, and he's not allowed to leave. His parents provide him with all the food, water, attention, and love that he requires. They're nurturing people who teach him everything they feel he needs to grow successfully in their house. They explain to X from a very young age that the food he eats comes from a mysterious ogre who lives in a cave outside. They explain that the ogre conjures the food up magically and gives it to them to bring back to cook to the family. The ogre is described as having muscular build, large fangs, and claws. X doesn't know any better. How could he? His ignorance binds him to belief, and the longer he lives and eats and grows from that food, his mind is robbed of the possibility that this food comes from any other source. What's more is that X does have friends and knows other adults from the village beyond his parents. There are all these people who walk into X's house and are very kind to him. They too reinforce the myth of the friendly food-producing ogre. They've never seen it themselves, but they do have the audacity to teach the ogre's presence to X as if it were fact. Why would he disagree? Why would a young child who's been given love, food, and attention from multiple, otherwise verifiable, reliable sources need to question that information? We're talking about the same people who warned him not to touch the hot stove or to guzzle his frosty beverage too quickly. When he disregarded claims like that, he's been punished not by them but by the burn on his hand or the brain freeze in his head. Perhaps one day one of X's friends suggests that the ogre isn't real. What might his initial reaction be? He might laugh off the remark, he might entertain the notion, or he might even punch his friend right in the face for making a statement that contradicts his ultimate source of love, nourishment, and knowledge. Odds are he'd be ineffably uncomfortable with the contemplating of that possibility that his ultimate knowledge source has been so fundamentally wrong about such an important issue. If they were wrong about something like that, then what reason is there to believe that any other fiber of knowledge in his brain is true? The first questioning of an ultimate knowledge source can be incredibly frightening, and humans faced with insurmountable fear are typically reduced to a fight or flight reaction. The simplest resolution is to write off the source of the question as insane or invalid and go on living in a blissful, unquestioning fashion. Perhaps that seed of doubt slowly grows in X's mind, as time goes on, blossoming with him into young adulthood, just enough for him to at least put the ogre claim to a test. It's most likely that he doesn't wish to test it in the interest of disproving it, but rather in the interest of confirming it. He would want so badly to know for sure that the one source of all his intelligence is 100% accurate, especially on an issue as important as the source of all his energy. So perhaps one day X breaks out of the front door while his parents are gone, and his mind is flooded with the colors, shapes, and sensations of the outside world. He might be originally overwhelmed, but his brain would soon crave for more and more new input with his growing comprehension of just how big the world beyond his house is. He might sprint from place to place, absorbing new information and eventually stumbling upon a local farm, seeing some familiar things. X might be very confused to see vegetables that he believed were conjured up from some magic ogre sprouting in different sizes from green stalks in the ground. He might be overwhelmed to see such a large plot of land designated for the sole purpose that he believed to this point that only happened in a cave. During this process, his mind might be limbering up for some serious mental gymnastics. His first concept to wrestle with might be his personal definition of a cave. Perhaps he can expand the definition of cave well enough to see it as being one large hole in a wall of rock, or a series of small holes in the ground. Well, that was easy enough. Perhaps what his parents meant by ogre was that farmer over there who's working very hard to nurture his food, and maybe that's the magical part. X might talk to that farmer about where this food comes from, and it might be the first person to give him an honest answer on the matter in his entire life. But maybe the magic his parents described wasn't an instant production out of nothing like what he's imagined. Surely the process the farmer would describe of turning a small seed into a flourishing plant is nothing short of magical as well. After subtly observing the farmer's fingers and teeth, X's eyes might desperately search the farm until finding scythes, threshers, and harvesters with curving blades that he can consider the symbolic representation of the ogre's large fangs and claws. Just like that, the mental gymnastics are complete. His brain's legs are shaking, but it has stuck the landing. Just like that, Reality has not contradicted his ultimate source of knowledge, but rather confirmed it. What's more, he might be heavily inclined to spread the word of his new discovery to others, to explain that the ogre is even grander than what people can imagine, and they must listen to him if they wish to know the truth of the ogre's power, for he has seen it himself. In the back of his straining brain, that seed of doubt might be flourishing more than those plants on the contradiction farm themselves, but so is X's will to suppress that doubt. In the back of his mind, he probably knows that ogre story involves just as much manure as the farm soil beneath his feet. His two options of accepting the doubt and rejecting it, however, were an easy choice for his subconscious. Why risk feeling that the world has lied to him, including everyone he's ever loved and trusted? Why risk feeling completely alone or questioning the primary source for all the knowledge in his brain? The only reward for all that risk is the potential for truth. For many people, in comparison to the comfort of conformity and the confirmation of the current belief system they hold, truth just doesn't sound that appetizing.